Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around. in a minute or two, we're going to get started with the next panel. All right, I think we'll get started. And so just a bunch of things are being live streamed downstairs as well, so everyone who's in the second floor can hear us too. All right, so thank you all so much for joining for our third session of the day. My name is Theo and our various state guests to talk about extremely important and pernicious issue of thematic that we're continuing into the issue of online and its intersection with crime. So I'd like for our four panelists to introduce themselves. I'll just start by saying their names and organizations. So we're very happy to have Doris Lee here, the Technology Policy Manager at Ofcom in the UK. Bjorn Ehler is the founder and CEO of the company Remodulant, and if you've seen their demo downstairs, when you walk in, it's just on the left, so you should definitely check out their demo. We did a bias bounty with them as well. We've got Louis LB for short, the CEO and co-founder of Tremo, and Alexandra Darby, who is the lead of AI and digital rights at Femiso, who is also here doing a demo on the AI Right to Be event that we did together in Brussels as well. So if you have a chance to check that out, then it's just downstairs. Right. So would you guys like to start by introducing yourselves?
Sure. Hi. As Sue said, I'm Doris, and I focus on generative AI. And just to cover a wide range of and our mission is to make communications work for everyone. And our online safety goals focus on making sure that regulated services have the systems and processes in place to ensure safe
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sounds weird. But yeah, we're understanding patterns of radicalization as well as potential threats. And so we're using that both to support technology companies in preventing which happens to be important with terrorism and online regulation. So we're helpful with we're working
thank you, Will, and
Thanks a lot. So I'm the co-founder of the provider that helps hash the generative content, scale the way in which they focusing on what you mentioned, which is today is so critical to regulation. By optimizing
So we'll start by setting the stage that this is the challenges that you're facing. So we'd love to hear more about the things that you're doing, specifically how is AI I just want to start off by saying, I'm also really excited about we think that AI is one of the most spread out. So, unlike traditional forms of online that by requiring a lot of human coordination and human resources, AI-powered tools these toxic narratives with minimal resources and free resources. Another area that we're looking at is the rise in generative AI chatbots. And the way that chatbots these chatbots that, by the way, people can create these and program them to spew hateful messages. And it spreads hate content in a rather accessible and conversational, which I think is really interesting and could lead to radicalization, right? And even if the underlying models that power these chatbots are designed to have safeguards against creating this type of hate content, jailwork and once this content is created and spread online, I think AI also contributes to the amplification using automated bot networks powered by AI, things like spamming comment sections, right? Targeting individuals repeatedly. This creates an illusion that there's widespread support for victims of harmful content and bystanders may withdraw from public discourse in a way that's really harmful to democracy and really harmful to the diversity of ideas that we're I want to end by saying, these tools we're talking about are new and are different, relatively new anyway, but the online hate have not changed over time. These are mostly with their LGBTQ plus, their migrants, their other marginalized communities, and this has for the proliferation of AI. It's just that AI has made it easier and more efficient to target these same communities. I know that the next one is going to touch a bit on this, but I just want to say that Ofcom doing research on deepfakes, research on they showed demeaning to shame or to bully someone, those are targeted experiences of those who most often
Yeah, we kind of tend to operate on the spectrum from toxic supercharge, which part of the shop shack is that it's really preventing the earlier stages of radicalization. Like during plans, yeah, there's things that are toxic that aren't necessarily illegal. And so what we're seeing across the spectrum is really increasing. We're seeing a lot more production of hate speech. Some like those over the ability to create but also using that then to obfuscate materials. So, like downstairs, we have a staff where showing some far right imagery that's AI generated and generated that way with obfuscates the imagery so that already have something with so we're also seeing creativity. The third thing that we're looking at is circumvention of we're seeing a lot of them pushing boundaries. So they were allowed to stay up. Some really extremist discourse for people who were like, it's a cartoon, let's go that route. And so, like, we're seeing kind of new funnels into these communities as well. Like, the bar, you enter as a color, like,
A lot of lot of impact.
Causing and being directly related to the genocide of the Rohingya Muslims. We look at 2019 when the Christchurch shootings were live streamed onto Meta's platforms. And then more recently, over the summer in the UK, we had the race riots in migrant and Muslim communities, which were massively directed by misinformation and spread one of the other problems we're taking out of networks of bad actors in the space that are trying to spread hate, individuals that spread far-right, racist, anti-Muslim content on their attention. And so 2 years ago at the European Youth Event, there was a responsible of young Muslims to attend. And during that time, the far-right youth group took photos of our members and posted them online under the heading of "These are people from the Muslim Brotherhood," which was a massive security risk then for, in some cases, young women whose photos were put on there without their consent, and was a security risk for them then going home to their countries, whether that was in the Balkans or Central Europe or even in France. And these are issues that we really want to see being addressed and taken care of.
FemiSo worked with Humane Intelligence a few months ago to do a red teaming exercise, and we're mostly an advocacy organization. So we wanted to raise awareness about the impact that large language models and the amount of vulnerabilities they have when it comes to producing Islamophobic content. And over a period of about 2 hours with about 40 attendees, we were able to generate over 260 examples of content that we believe to be Islamophobic. There simply isn't the regulation in place to protect us from these types of content and from the easy creation of them. We had roughly 10 scenarios that we asked people to create content for and create prompts around.
We do have seats up front, so if you want to sit down, there's quite a few open seats, but if you're comfortable standing, that's also great. But yeah, just wanted to flag seats here, 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 and especially over there. They're maybe not visible from where you're standing, but you're welcome to sit. So we've focused so far on the challenges, and they are significant. Now I'd like us to turn to the solutions, the recommendations. So I'd love to hear more about which AI-related solutions you are all driving towards in the respective roles that you have, and also if there's anything that the people here in the audience can do to be a part of the solution, ways to get involved in your work or ways to take action in their own capacities. I'd love to hear that too. Thank you. And Doris, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Theo. And I just want to point out what Alex was saying earlier about how the right regulations perhaps aren't in place to fully address some of the issues that we're bringing up in this panel. And I think what I want to say is, we're the UK's online safety regulator. We hear you. We are doing our very best with the laws that are in place to protect people online. And now that we're on solutions, I do want to talk about the regulations that we do have. And one of them is the Online Safety Act. And the Online Safety Act is a set of laws that require services, regulated services, to take actions to, again, put those systems and those processes in place to protect the users that are on their platforms, including against illegal harms and including against hate speech. This is the law. And as part of that, as part of the Online Safety Act, under that, Ofcom has produced codes of practice, so a set of recommended guidelines to services, asking them to do things like produce risk assessments. What is the risk of hate content appearing on your platform, right? Asking platforms to make it easy for users to report hate content as they encounter it on the platform, and asking them to have well-resourced content moderation teams and systems to respond to those user reports in a timely manner. We are confident that these measures will help companies address some of the risks that that illegal harms will pose, including hate speech. And we're confident because we've talked to a lot of our stakeholders in industry and academia, civil rights groups. We have talked to them and consulted with them to develop these measures and recommendations. And we also believe that we can do this while balancing human rights, such as freedom of expression. I think we also touched on, LV touched on using AI in content moderation. And I think that's another area that we are looking at. So in particular, an area of research I'm looking at is how can we use generative AI to moderate content, especially content that spreads so quickly and there's so much of it online, right? Maybe human moderation teams can't keep up. So there's really exciting and early evidence that generative AI can contribute to content moderation processes by, for example, writing content policies that encapsulate a wider range of hate content, or maybe looking at an individual piece of content and helping a content moderator determine, is this violative or not? Or even generating synthetic data to train machine learning classifiers to detect hate speech at scale more accurately. So this is some really promising research that I've been monitoring at Ofcom. And if any folks in the audience are also interested in this topic or doing research on this topic, I would love to hear from you about that. So, we're doing a lot of work at Ofcom, and this team, the teams that I'm working with, are really passionate about these issues. We hear you, we hear your concerns, and we take these very seriously. So if you're out there and you're wanting to work with the UK's online safety regulators who day in, day out think about issues such as online hate, do feel free to reach out afterwards for a chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doris. Would you like to go next, Bjorn?
Thank you. One regulation, the other thing is just decent. And a lot of the times there's decent people working within the platforms who want to promote decency or platforms. A little bit less of that in the last month or so. But, you know, I think like thinking about it from a policy perspective within platforms, as well as from a legislative perspective, and like figuring out like where the middle ground there is in terms of like how do we regulate platforms, but also how does specific platforms want to foster cultures on their platforms. And so like policy teams are an opportunity, and working with them on creating better environments, safer environments in which people can safely express themselves without being threatened on the basis of their identity, etc., is an opportunity. When it comes to like our work, a lot of our kind of AI work is focused on detection right now, looking at things like computer vision. And so we did a bounty with Humane Intelligence, their second bias bounty, in the fall, where we were developing computer vision models to detect far-right imagery, training it on a data set that we had collected, and using that to find more Nazi images than we did before, which is good. But like one thing is kind of visual detection. There's an ever-evolving visual language within some of these communities, and so continuously training and updating those models as well is really valuable. Continuously collecting that is another element that we're focused on. But then understanding how to do that safely in a way where that data isn't then used to train like new generative images, generative models used externally, for instance, would be problematic, right? So there's always kind of the cat and mouse game of some of these evolutions. Beyond visual recognition, we're also looking a lot at text recognition. It works well in English, but like I'm not a native English speaker. Many of you are not native English speakers. And so you know that like it working well in like North Californian English is not necessarily like helpful to the rest of the world all the time. We fall apart really quickly when it comes to dialects, when it comes to slang, when it comes to like internal language within communities. And so that's where like our work and research right now is really on like how do we tie the pattern recognition both from a linguistic perspective as well as from a behavioral pattern perspective to understand like how the social dynamics within this group is shaping the language, and how kind of dialects are forming within communities in specific languages that aren't English, how they combine words in new ways, etc. And so there's a lot of really interesting opportunities in terms of like computational linguistics on the detection side as well. And we tend to think about like AI right now mostly from a generating text perspective, which sure is useful, but also it's really interesting to look at it from like how do we detect text. The other element to add to that is audio, where like text, like speech to text rarely works again outside of North Californian English, finding real problems with like neural dialects that are spoken by like 20 people in a valley somewhere. And so like working on how those models for speech to text also can be improved upon in order to like fit into the larger model of understanding behavior is really where opportunities lie for the time ahead.
Thanks, Bjorn. And LV.
Thanks. Again, I'll follow the trend, and after saying all the harms that can be generated by Gen AI, some of the amazing breakthroughs that is also possible, right? You mentioned a few. Another one which we found very interesting recently in a use case is how you can actually combine different models with Gen AI to understand, like if you have a text and an image, even in two different posts or in the same post, but on specific, and how you can actually say, I hate, and then a flag below. A lot of the time, the current models won't able to detect and to be able to combine the sentiment of both. And that's actually doable now. And this is something that we see being much more available, being much more easily implementable by some of the smaller size platforms. This being said, all of this requires you to have a process in place. All of you requires you, the platforms, to have a fair process in place, to have the ability to be transparent, to have the ability to have the user appeal when a content is being taken down, to make sure that there is a redress mechanism. It requires platforms to be transparent about what their policies are, be transparent about how much content they removed, about why they removed it. And again, these processes are not always easy to develop. Right, platforms like Meta has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to develop them over the years. I'm not sure that a smaller game company, an average sized marketplace, or even some of the big ones, by the way, have the money to implement those, and therefore to be able to leverage the latest models or the latest technology or AI advances to be able to detect and moderate the content in a way that's much better, much more efficient, much more targeted, and much more scalable. Another element which was mentioned around regulation as well. Some of where we're seeing the regulators in the UK and in Europe advance is also around this notion of risk management. I personally come from a risk management background in the financial industry, right? And model risk management seems it's something that seems very natural, or regular look back to say, okay, these are how our models are working, or this is the type of hate we're seeing, or this is the type. What I found very interesting when we've been assisting at Trimo, a number of the platforms, from the very, very biggest platforms to some of the very small platforms, doing their OSA risk assessments or the DSA risk assessments under the Digital Services Act, is how that data is not available, even at the biggest platforms. Working with some clients to say, okay, basic elements around, okay, what's your exposure to that type of threat? We need to ask a data scientist. Okay, we have a 1 month delay before we get an answer. How is that? That should be daily. You should have dashboards with these things that you can see on a daily basis, so you can continuously update your policies, make them better, make your detection models better, and understand new threats, understand where these new threats are coming from, how they're impacting your users. And we speak about some of the hate, some of the harms that we're seeing, but it's across the board, around scams, around for marketplaces, around drug selling, around these names change all the time, and it's really, really important that platforms are able to follow the trend and see what's happening on the platform. And a lot of the time, they actually don't have the systems to do so.
Thank you, Elvi. And Alexandra.
Thank you. So I'm from an advocacy organization. So I think for us, the biggest thing that we need, first of all, is we need big tech regulators and everyone really in this space to acknowledge what the problem is and to be comfortable naming it. And I mean, just as a question for everyone here, how many of you can tell me when is the UN's International Day to Combat Islamophobia? Or even on an EU level, when is the EU's International Day to European Action Day against Islamophobia? Or even from the UK, when is Islamophobia Awareness Month? And the fact that these are all things which exist, which are recognized really internationally, and yet none of us can say, yes, on this day, on this month, my organization has said X, has made X statement, has made X promise to look at addressing these problems. For us, really, that's the number one thing that we need to see in this space. And then what we need, and this isn't just because we're an advocacy organization that cares about anti-racism, but is an anti-racism framework to address the multitude of problems that have been discussed here. And I'm not just saying that because anti-racism is something that does concern every single one of us, but even just from a Muslim youth perspective, we are such a diverse group of individuals with different ethnic backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, different migrant statuses, that actually this is really something urgently that we need regulators and companies and media companies as well to take a look at and to make sure they've strongly put into their frameworks. And then the other thing we need is civil society and grassroots organizations to be really brought into these conversations. We need things to be able to respond quickly, and the way you'll do that is by engaging with the grassroots organizations that are dealing with the evolving problems on the ground. It can't be done from a high level. You need to talk to people that are facing these problems day in, day out, and consider who's not engaging in these discussions and who hasn't been given the opportunity to engage. The last thing that I really want you all to consider is, as I said, who is and isn't being brought into these discussions. FemiSo has been trying to do work to engage in these spaces, but at the end of the day, we're a youth-led civil society organization that is mostly run by volunteers. We shouldn't be the ones that are leading this conversation. We need support. We need actors from other sectors, from other fields to engage with us in this space to help make sure that these problems get addressed. And as was said at the start, we do have a booth downstairs, so come and say hi. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra. So we're a little short on time. We won't have time for a round of questions, but if our speakers can stay a few minutes, folks are welcome to come up and ask them questions individually. We'll be resuming with the next panel on tech-facilitated gender-based violence in about 20 minutes. So feel free to have some drinks, go to the bathroom. The demos will be ongoing. And please join me in thanking our incredible panelists for their immense contributions. Thank you all. We'll see you in about 20 minutes.